Welcome to Business Connection. I'm Liz Spencer. I have a very interesting show for you today. I have Malik Gilani. He's the executive director from Silk Road Rising, and he's joined by Jamil Khoury, the artistic director from Silk Road Rising. And you all have put together a play, Mosque Alert. You're the playwright for that, and you are here to tell us a little bit about it. So tell me, what was the inspiration and the catalyst behind Mosque Alert?
So the catalyst for Mosque Alert was the summer of 2010. Okay. And perhaps you recall there was this huge controversy in New York City about a proposed Islamic community center in close proximity to the site of the World Trade Towers. So when we first heard about the proposal and the vision for this center, we were so excited. It would be a center of interfaith dialogue and healing and conversation and community building. And all of a sudden, there were all these accusations being lobbed against, kind of the visionaries behind this idea, that this was somehow desecrating the memory of those who were killed in 9/11, that this was somehow an affront to, American memory or American values or this, that, or the other. And we thought, that's really disturbing because clearly that wasn't the intent. And then we started looking around at communities across the U.S. and realized that resistance to the building of mosques is not a phenomena limited to Lower Manhattan, but is actually playing out in rural communities, suburban communities, urban, so forth and so on, and that it ties in with these kind of existential fears that Muslims pose a threat, that Muslims are somehow to be feared, that there may be harm caused by the presence of a mosque in one's community.
And in some ways, it's 10 years after 9/11, right?
Right.
And it's the impact of 9/11 also on Muslim community. And so there are, how has the relationship of the Muslim community to the mainstream community changed? And I see with these battles to secure zoning in order to build Islamic houses of worship, that is an example of how the relationship has changed for us in this country.
So, Jamal, you created Mosque Alert, which is a play that kind of talks a little bit about this conflict, but brings it very home.
So here we have this very sort of salient conflict, this national issue, conversation that people want to talk about, don't want to talk about, and I thought this would lend itself very well to theater. Mm-hmm. That there is a dramatic conflict just waiting to be mined for the stage. And I created 3 families, and the play is set here in Naperville, and these are fictional families, and their lives are all somehow disrupted, interrupted by a proposed Islamic community center in the heart of downtown Naperville. And so it's really a personal and a political exploration about how a town's reaction, for better and for worse, affects people's personal lives and their relationships to one another. 2 of the families are Muslim, and the 3rd family is a Caucasian family ostensibly of a Christian background. Actually, the one character says she's Presbyterian, so so that does get established. But they're complicated, and their lives they're intertwined, and people are very conflicted.
And I think what's exciting about the play is you didn't just sit down and write it.
Right.
You invited the community to help you develop this play.
This was a very unorthodox and non-traditional new play development process. So essentially, we said, okay, we have a new play development objective. It's about writing a play, but there's also a desire to have a civic conversation. There's also a desire to sort of interject ourselves into this larger, really manifestation of post 9/11 fears, as Malik said. This is not in my backyard idea. I'm fine with mosques. I'm fine, just not, this kind of thing. So we started to work on developing characters and developing relationships between characters, and did so through video, and posting videos on our website, on YouTube, sending them to our database, and getting feedback from people. What do you think? How is this resonating? What do you want to learn? What is interesting to you? These kind of questions, and a robust conversation took off.
Yeah, you provided the audience, in a way, black and white sort of conflicts.
Yeah.
And then you said to the audience, okay, where should this conflict fall? How gray should this character become? How gray should idea become? And that's where the audience was able to be invested in the story and in the play by being able to contribute their thoughts that you ultimately then enveloped into the stage play.
Right, and we've got just a little clip from you put this some of your video work together in Meet Mosque Alert. So we're going to take just a minute break to take a look a little bit at Meet Mosque Alert.
So there's been this proposal made. Some people want to put up a 100,000 square foot Islamic center, mosque, or whatever they call it.
Logistically, we've just run out of space at our old masjid, so we needed new space.
This mosque that's being built, they want a bigger mosque.
It would be a gathering place, a community center for non-Muslims and Muslims.
And they're going to be everywhere. I swear, I'm going to see more of them coming around my town. I can't handle it.
The building that's being proposed itself is beautiful. It's unlike anything that we have here in our community.
But unfortunately, this is being met with a lot of obstacles from the DuPage County Board in particular.
This has a lot of people concerned. It has a lot of people wondering what really the motives are behind this Islamic center.
We've run into a great deal of resistance in the form of concerns about water drainage,
zoning problems,
parking congestion,
noise pollution.
It's going to be tax exempt. They're not going to pay any taxes.
This has nothing to do with zoning or congestion.
What it's really about is fear and racism. Anti-Muslim racism.
We're not a bunch of racists. We're patriotic Americans.
The video was, it stirred up a lot of thoughts, and it really brought it home for me to get a little snip of what you were doing. Why did you choose Naperville?
There were two cases pending in Naperville of two Muslim congregations that were proposing either new buildings or extension to an existing building, both of which were facing community resistance, and both of which were being blocked by, through the sort of processes of obtaining approval. So the fact that, you had two in one town sort of flagged something to us. Also, Naperville, in my recollection, as someone who grew up in the northwest suburbs, is a really interesting place, because I remember when Naperville was probably a town of 20,000 or 25,000 people.
Look at us now.
And today it's approaching 150,000. And so that kind of almost unprecedented growth in a relatively short period of time said to us that there's something in this community that we want to connect with, that we want to be part of a mix.
Yeah, Naperville, great schools, security, great opportunities, great parks. It's an inviting place for all sorts of people, including people who love their families. And some of the people who've been moving to Naperville in the largest numbers are Muslim Americans.
Yes.
So this town has a huge Muslim presence. And the only Muslim community center is on the outskirts of town. And so what we started to say to ourselves was, what if the Muslim community said, we want to be in the heart of the town? And then in Naperville, which, highly educated community, people who are well-read, well-literate, we thought could actually engage this idea more deeply. And so in order to create that engagement, and instead of landing in with a complete play, what we did is we began to engage with the Naperville community. I've met with both the former mayor and the current mayor. I've met with city council members. I've met with DuPage County members. And we've partnered with local churches, mosques, libraries, public institutions. And what we've been doing is bringing this video project, Meet Mosque Alert, to the community, to the venue where these communities gather, and then ask them to help us craft the storyline.
Well, I think that's great. I think it's interesting that usually we all go to a play and the play is set, and we don't have any influence on it. But you've really come into the community and gotten us to engage, and I think not only to craft it, but also to get us to think about our own situation and to help become better people.
And we've set our fictional Islamic Center in downtown Naperville.
At the Old Nichols Library.
At the Old Nichols Library, because when one looks at the downtown area, there are probably maybe 10 churches, these beautiful old churches, sort of throughout the area. And we thought, okay, well, this would be an interesting way to also have an interfaith conversation and to look at, what is sort of the next generation when we look at spiritual landscape, where, Naperville has a Hindu population and a Buddhist population and a Jewish population, so forth and so on, that it really is a kind of religious mosaic. So the center would become part of that world. But at the same time, it's very high profile. So for people who might see that as a provocation or as somehow threatening, we wanted to be able to capture that. It's one thing if you're on the outskirts of town. It's one thing if you're in unincorporated Naperville. It's another thing if you're going to be seen all the time.
Right, on Washington Street.
On Washington Street,
right.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel about that? And that is what generates, I think, your entrance into this play.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to find out more about Silk Road Rising, who is putting on Mosque Alert, when we return.